I'm going to look at a request. So one of the requests was from this general that we've been following at every step, which has been really cool. Let me just have a see where it was. It was in the YouTubes. I think it was portfolio based. Okay, so Layla's asking, can't make it for the stream. So a portfolio review based on game ready character projects and getting a display a good understanding of topology UVs. So good, that's a good target. And potentially some experience working in games pipeline as opposed to animation and FX. So those are good goals to go towards. It's just is the portfolio kind of like matching that goal? So it's good things to think about if we go back to wondering about this kind of like cycle. So it seems you're already in that process, which is good. Also at the same time, targeting some studios like Axis Studios, Watichi, and some other ones. So yeah, why not have them as a goal? And Airship as well, and also outsourcing studios. I mean, to sort of overlay my personal view, I wouldn't go for outsourcing studios. Just if you wanted the perfect career path, my personal suggestion for you to get the most out would not be to go to an outsourcing studio, and that's just kind of like from knowing a lot of character artists and working with outsourcing studios and stuff. So maybe these ones are a little bit more like refined, so go for this. Anyway, let's have a look at the portfolio. All right, so the first thing I will actually do, and this is how I go through and look at sort of like applications and stuff. I'll just take a photo of like the outline. I think one of the other questions was, do you combine the CG and the games projects? So that's a good question, because who knows? It really depends on different studios. So you basically have to like work out. Oh, sorry, my computer's going crazy. Yeah, everyone have a different preference for that. So for example, like if your portfolio is studio CG based, or if it's real-time based, you're just going to annoy the other person. So sometimes you can like make custom portfolios that, you know, usually sending off like a Google Drive with information if you want to like refine that. So for me, I'm a games person, so in terms of CG, I don't look at those too much. The main areas that I directly go to of interest, and this is kind of like in the order, is the first one is this one. So that's probably the first one I'd look at, sort of like harkens to more game aspects. Then the other sort of ones that I'm looking at is this second one. Everyone's going to be different, so don't take this with a grain of salt. And then also down here, that's like showing quite a lot of technical skills and stuff. And then I would lead into the portraits, like these two. Those are the ones that are primary interest. And then because I'm looking at character artists, this kind of doesn't resonate in my processing. So we might come back to that later, but it wouldn't be interesting that much for me. So if we wanted to refine it, maybe just like put that towards the end, just so it's more focused. So that being the first one, let's actually have a look at each one of the projects. So for everyone, the layout is going to be important, and also the order at which things come in. So for example, straight away when opening up a project, I want to see high poly, low poly, unwrap, texture, final presentation as quick as possible. So this seems to be done quite well. So for example, I can see the sculpt straight away and see the low poly straight away, maybe quite quickly. You know, we got the full shots and the poses. I would just like to see a couple of like texture and UV layouts, and then you can leave all the technical or tutorial stuff towards the later end. You basically just want to have person scrolling as little as possible. Also, I would sometimes put the beauty or the kind of like flagship image at the top, because the turnarounds are just a little bit more information that we want to see later. So you'd have your flagship at the top, and then you'd tick the marks of like retopology, texturing and stuff like that. So in terms of the character, I think it's really cool. It's like a painted style. I would ask questions on the sort of character creator, like how much you sort of used in that. But it's good. Yeah, it's got a nice set of softwares that are used and stuff. In terms of topology, I don't know if this is for the game one, because you are using a V-Ray. So I would just, you know, in an interview, what we'd be asking is like your level of optimization for certain things, like for the button and things like that. So for example, like the tip of the hair would be quite a red flag if this was a games thing. So yeah, you just want to be true to what the final outcome of the character is. Is it for CG or is it for games art? Because right now, if you're applying for game studios, I'm not sure that the topology sort of like completes that aspect. So that's kind of where I'd look into an optimization. But we can go looking for a games asset. So kind of getting the vibe that you're you might have said this actually already, is that it's you're CG based and you're sort of like looking to get over to real time. So a lot of V-Ray stuff. But in terms of artistry, I think you've got like a good eye. So everything looks nice, nicely colored and nicely presented. So I don't think you're gonna have a problem transferring over. I probably wouldn't apply, well, it's up to you, but I wouldn't apply to too many games until you have that bulked up UV retopology. But I think you know that already, and that's something you've mentioned, that you're trying to sort of like focus on topology UVs and displaying that. So I think you've already got the kind of answer there, but I'll just be like confirming that for you. Yeah, you definitely want to start to introduce those. So for your portfolio, might be an idea to really take on a games project, one that can have and facilitate like an Unreal Engine badge on the thumbnail. And once we see that, it's like, okay, the person can complete the full games workflow, and they also have an artistic background. So all of these individual sections, what they're telling me is that you have the know-how in the artistry, but maybe we just need to like up the technical stuff. But yeah, to be honest, I think finding the right person in terms of a studio, you shouldn't have too much problem actually getting like a CG role. Obviously there are probably like not as many opportunities if you're just a CG person, but everything's to a good quality that you could start to sort of apply for that. Just depends on what you want to be in the final moments, if you want to be a games person or sort of like CG. So I'd leave that in the chat eventually when you get it. If you wake up, I know you're in sort of like somewhere else, like Australia or something, so you gotta make these. But yeah, what do you guys think of Layla's portfolio here? Cool. So you have some industry work here in CG. That's cool. I think that looks really nice. Yeah, it's high quality. I mean, it could be that you could even make some of these real time. You know, if you've got the sculpts and stuff, there's no reason that you can't re-simulate this instead of V-Ray into like Unreal Engine or Marmoset. It would look very similar, if not have like different elements to it. You'd have more shader work. Amazing. I see her in ZBrush Lives. Really cool. Yeah, what are ZBrush Lives? How do people get on ZBrush Lives, huh? Nice thing about real-time and the games and stuff, you don't have to worry about the passes. Don't have to worry about the lighting, rays, and how many things you're using. If it looks too dusty, the time it takes to render it, it's all just instant artistic feedback, which is like a nice, if I'm going to sell games in real time to you, that's sort of the nice thing about it. All right, guys. So, I mean, that kind of wraps it nicely. For the final moments, we can go into just like questions and answers to set you on your week until the next one. If there's any things that you've bumped into to do with the anatomy study. If not, I've got some questions for you while you're here. It's basically as I'm making stuff for you guys. I was delving into making basically like a character course, so starting that, and I was just wondering what would be best for you guys if you wanted like something that was a full character or broke it down into different components, like it would start with retopology, because I know if it was focused on games and retopology first, that would be useful for quite a lot of people. Like even for this, for example, is like understanding how to transfer from CG into like real time, or would the preference be sort of like a chronological start to a character all the way to the end, which would obviously include retopology. So everyone's slightly different because you know, some people want to know retopology straight away, some people are not too fussed about it, some people are more like we'll never do retopology, unfortunately. But is modularity a complex topic? I don't see much of it. Modularity isn't too much of a complex topic at the start. It just depends on what category it is, whether it's environments, prop, or character. So for example, like on environments, obviously there's a lot of modularity, so you need to get a deeper understanding if you're like an environment artist or like controlling that sort of thing. Character artists is really, you don't have to worry too much about modularity. You used to, because we had like really tight budgets, but the only modularity you'll see is like on buttons, or if we're reusing things like hair or switching out equipment. But yeah, when it comes to environments, there's so many different opportunities for modularity. You can almost have like 5 ways to do a specific thing. So for example, like if we were putting tiles on a floor, you know, what sort of map are we going to use, and how we're going to break that UV up into loads of different components. So will that texture have like one of the tiles, will it have a crack on it? Now if it has a crack on it, that kind of like breaks the modularity because it repeats all the time. But there's ways around that. We can actually sort of like take that off the UVs and put it elsewhere with actual physical geometry. So if you're an environment artist, modularity can get very complicated, but it can be very simple at the same time. So it's a big broad question that depends on many different things, but that's the sort of like the overview of it. part of modularity as well is also how to break up modularity. So you also have to be thinking about that. So for example, like you can use decals, you can use trims. Trim sheets are the sort of like their own topic. So how you break up modularity, you can break up with lighting and sort of like occlusion and things like that. I'd love to do an environment module. I teach it in person, but I've actually done nothing online. A modular character course, let's go. Yeah, I mean, so character modularity is almost unavoidable when you get into the industry. I think like, wow, almost all my projects have involved like some form of character modularity, whether it is sharing of like facial animations or meshes, a lot of switching out of different areas. So for example, sharing and switching out heads and equipment, that is a form of modularity. So they all have to like fit on top of each other. So yeah, character modularity, that could be a component of the course. It's very important, so it's good that you mentioned that. I think what I tend to see in courses is it's like how to replicate someone making a thing, and it's very rarely about like having the skills that are very useful to be employed as a game artist. So for example, character modularity, that wouldn't sell very well, but it's actually very important, and it's you know, if you saw it on a portfolio, that'd be very good. So we have texture modularity as well, don't we? So we'll often switch out textures for the asset, and how does that modularity interact with character creators, which, you know, character creators are almost a set thing in every game nowadays. Plan is to keep grinding on the portfolio piece since I'm back to where... Okay, so you're back in the growth phase, my friend. Yes, best way to learn. This one's a nice, easy, simple one, just growing and growing. My preference would be chronological, understand the pipeline. So what I'm hearing is pipeline, maybe a little bit of methodology, full chronology, and then character creator. That's the perfect course, huh? And then sprinkled in with a little bit of hair there, or a little bit of cloth. If you want to do environments, if you want to do some landscapes in Unreal Engine, or some trees or foliage, this can also be covered. Nice thing about characters is, once you know how to do hair, you pretty much know how to do foliage. So you know how to do trees, and the software for making trees and foliage is very simple. We mostly use like SpeedTree and ZBrush and Maya. Okay guys, unless there's any more questions that I see at the final furlongs, we're going to end it there, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming if you made it, and also putting onto the discords. Yeah, really keep these up to date, even if there's like a very small minor thing. Every little bit can get some feedback, and also it's really great to see that you've taken on board like the subjects and actually posted those inside of the actual workflows. You know, it's a good habit to get into, and so we can see how you sort of like broken it down. Other people can learn from you. So cool. Yeah, I will catch you on the next one, guys. Goodbye. Have a good week.